Again, welcome all. Folks are entering where they're joining from. So as you join the call, please do that. Let us know where you're joining us from around the globe. So let's get started with our presentation. And I would like to kick it off with the promo trailer. Whoa, that trailer gets me excited every time. So again, welcome everyone to the GDSC Solution Challenge 2023 kickoff event. Thousands of you RSVP'd, and many of you are joining us today to learn more about the annual competition from Google and have the opportunity to connect with each other globally. These are folks who are interested in solving problems that have real impact. So this is our agenda for today. We'll do some introductions and share community agreements, then get into the details of the Solution Challenge requirements from Jackie Bedard. You'll then hear from Erwin Batboul, who'll talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, followed by Kyle Paul, who will help you think about getting started with Google products for your project. Then we'll have a brief Q&A, a question and answer segment, before we all move to networking tables to conclude our event for today. So community agreements. So these are norms or rules that we want to establish in our time that we're gathered here together that we all agree to. So first thing I ask is that you all share your questions in the designated Q&A section of the chat, and we'll address questions after the presentation. So I just want to provide a visual. On the left side, you'll see how you can navigate to the Q&A section in order to start to drop your questions in, and we'll answer during the designated Q&A segment. We'll also welcome, as a community, we welcome diverse opinions and experiences. So we ask that you are respectful of each other's thoughts and expressions. We also ask that you respect each other's confidentiality. And for that, I appreciate the statement that always says, what is said here stays here, but what is learned here leaves here. So take away what is valuable to your learning and to your growth from this experience together. And if you are experiencing any technical issues and challenges and need assistance, we do have our Bevy support team on hand. Bevy is the platform that we're using here for this event, and you can click Get Help, and someone will be able to help support you through whatever the technical challenge is. So, all right, let me introduce myself. I know I've been talking at you for a little bit, but I am Rachel Francois, the Global Program Manager of Google Developer Student Clubs, GDSC for short, which is the acronym we like to use. And I join you all from New York City. It's nice to be here to share more on Solution Challenge and learn more of what you're excited about. Some of you are new to this Google Developer community, so I want to share a little bit about Google Developer Student Clubs. So Google Developer Student Clubs are university-based community groups for students interested in Google technologies. Students grow their knowledge in a peer-to-peer learning environment and build solutions to solve local problems. GDSC started as a way to help students bridge the gap between theory and practice and have the opportunity to apply their learning through project-based experiences. Today, GDSC has over 1,900 clubs on university campuses in 111 countries. And we continue to grow, and we're so excited to have many of our leads and core members here with us today, as well as folks from the general public who are interested in learning about Solution Challenge, as well as Google Developer Student Clubs. So before we get into the logistical details of the solution challenge, I want each of you to think about why you're interested in participating in this competition. Is it because you want to build something? Is it because you want to inspire change? Is it because you want to do good for your community? Is it because the prizes are cool? It could be one and all of those reasons, but it's really important that you understand your motivation for getting started, because the journey in this challenge will challenge you. It'll require you to be reflective, flexible, and bold. The solution challenge is about empowering students like yourselves to drive impact in your communities through the transformative power of technology. And impact, as I say, it can be small and large. Technology can serve as a tool to solve some of the world's problems, and it can start with your idea or an iteration of an idea that already exists in the world, and you just want to build on top of that. However, you have to start by asking questions and imagining a world as it is, imagining the world as it could be rather than what it is. You have to be able to see where new things are possible. So in the chat, just to get some engagement going, some of you, I would love for you to share, what are some issues that would be worth contributing a solution for? What are some issues and challenges in your local community, among your peers, friends, family, neighborhood that matter to you and could take some time to investigate and build a tool around? Great. I see to improve the living and create sustainable development. And I'm asking folks to drop their motivation or some ideas around what are issues that matter to you that would deserve some kind of solution and time to develop something to respond to that challenge. Hunger, health, great. Poverty, hunger. And I see some folks are naming some of the themes that come from our sustainable development goals, which we'll talk more about. Mental health, education, great. Continue to drop these in here. This can inspire some other folks who are just still not yet sure what topics are of interest. But I really wanted to start off there before we get into the nitty gritty of the solution challenge details, about what it is that you want to spend the next several months thinking and building around that have importance to you in your community. So now I'll pass it over to Jackie to talk about the logistics of the competition.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm very excited to be here today and have the opportunity to speak with you. We really appreciate you joining us. We know that you're from all over the world, and for some of you, it's very early. For others, it's very late. But just kind of piggybacking off of what Rachel said, you know, that why is really at the foundation of the solution challenge. And I'm going to be talking to you about some of those nitty-gritty details. Before I do that, I'll quickly introduce myself. So I'm Jackie Bedard. I'm one of the project managers on the GDSC Global team here. And I'm going to be talking to you about the solution challenge. We'll be going through an overview, eligibility requirements, detailed timeline, submission criteria, and prize information. So let's start with an overview. So in thinking about what's important in the world and those that are maybe less fortunate or who are suffering from inequalities, GDSC wanted to utilize that framework of the United Nations to develop a program that was centered around that. And the key mission here is to solve for one or more of those United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals using Google technology, which we thought was really interesting. And An interesting statistic is that just over 50% of our population in the world is under 30 years old. So think about that for a moment. Think about, being a student, being under 30 in a lot of cases. We make up so much of the population, and we have an opportunity to make a difference. So Erwin is going to go into more detail here around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But this is really at the foundation of the Solution Challenge, and pairing the technology that Google provides along with that why, and just thinking through how you can solve for something that is meaningful to you, that's in your community, in your region, something that that's important. So next, I'll be talking about the eligibility. This is arguably probably one of the most important parts. We also get a lot of questions about this, so we tried to make it pretty easy to understand here. So who can participate, and what are the rules about building teams? So members that can participate in the Solution Challenge have to be university students. They also have to be above the age of majority in their country, state, or provenance or jurisdiction of residence. Most often this is 18 years old, but do check with your country or the place that you live. And the program is open to any GDSC members, including leads and the core team. And each person can only join one team. So moving over to the team building rules. So at least one person on the team has to be a GDSC member. And so again, that can be a lead, could be a core team member, or just a regular GDSC member. Teams can be 1 to 4 people, but not more than 4 people. And a lot of questions come up about this. So team members can be from different universities, they can be from different GDSC chapters, and they can even be from different countries. So next we'll move into the timeline. So January 11th, we launched the Solution Challenge officially. Registration is open. And today is January 18th, where we are hosting our Solution Challenge kickoff event right here today. And between now and March 17th is when you all will have the opportunity to build teams, host workshops, collaborate, think of problems that you want to solve for, start building those solutions, iterate on those solutions. So the timeline of this offers about 2.5 months to build solutions. And we have a checklist that we'll go into next. But the submission timeline is open between March 17th and March 31st. So you'll have a little bit of time to go ahead and get those submissions in. After submissions close, our judges are going to be hard at work evaluating all of the projects. And in May, we'll host the top 100 teams. And on June 2nd, we'll have an opportunity for those 100 teams to resubmit their solutions after they go through a mentorship phase. A lot of you have talked about how important mentorship is, and we've tried to continue to bake this into the program even more, just knowing that connecting with experts and other professionals is really helpful for you all to succeed in your projects. After that, those top 100 teams will go through a second evaluation, and on June 19th, we will be announcing the top 10 teams. And between June 19th And August 3rd is when we'll be preparing for Demo Day, which is really exciting. It is a live stream event on YouTube on August 3rd, where the top 10 teams are going to demo their projects live, and we'll have judges. They're going to be asking questions. And at the end, we will be announcing the top 3 teams. So next we have this timeline checklist. So we have 3 different phases here, and feel free to, we will be sharing these slides, by the way, so you'll have the opportunity to print this out and check it off, or virtually check it off if you want to, and share it with your friends and teammates and other university students. So we have this getting started phase, then we have a design and build phase, and then we have the submissions and judging. And this aligns with the previous timeline, but from my perspective, I think it's a little bit better than thinking about your team and those individual steps that you'd need to check off to get your project submitted in time. So again, I'll just go through a couple things here. So we have forming a team, getting involved in info sessions, hackathons, and design days, thinking about the goals that you want to solve for, identifying a solution specifically, learning and building that out, testing, iterating, and then compiling all of that, recording a demo day video, and submitting that project information. We'll talk more about the criteria, and then the rest of those steps are what we talked about previously. But I really like this graphic because personally, I'm the type that I like to check things off. So I think this is a great asset for you all to utilize as you're forming teams. Okay, so next we're going to talk about criteria. So we have a couple different ways to think about this. So first of all, the criteria is all the same. We have, from the judges' perspective, the way that they're thinking about this criteria is through 2 parts: impact and technology. So we have a series of criteria that fall on the impact side, and a series that fall on the technology side. And each of those are going to be weighted as 25 points for a total of 50 points. And then each of these individual parts are each worth 5 points. Personally, from a project perspective, I think the next slide is a little bit easier to understand as you all are thinking about developing solutions. So Rachel, if you wouldn't mind advancing to that one. Again, this is the same criteria. It's just moved around in a different way. I think helps to just kind of set yourself up for success as you're thinking through all the parts of the submission process. So we have the project setup, we have implementation, and we have feedback, testing, and iteration. We have the success and completion of the solution, and then we have scalability and next steps. So let me go through some of the details here. So as a part of the project setup, you're going to be thinking about a problem statement. And we also have a slide here that's linked. Again, we'll be sharing that with you, so won't go into details now, but be sure to check that out later. So thinking through that problem statement of what are you solving for, what's the impact of that, what metrics might you consider? The second part of that is, what are the goals and targets, and what inspired you to choose that? How are we connecting this to the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals? Then as a part of implementation, we're thinking through the architecture. So thinking through the components of the architecture and thinking through which products and platforms that you want to choose and implement and why. And then as a part of feedback, testing, and iteration, just thinking about real users. Who are the people that are or would be impacted by your solution? Connecting with them, getting that feedback from them, getting them to use your solution, and then incorporating that back into and implementing those improvements. And then specifically on the coding side, just thinking through like a challenge that you're facing, like a part of I think one of the hardest parts of all of this is, is getting started. And there's a lot of challenges that you're going to face. Don't be afraid of that. But the judges are going to want to understand, what was that challenge and what did you do to address it? And that's going to be another part of just allowing your solution to become even more successful. Those challenges are going to be what make your solution even better. Then in terms of success and completion of the solution, drawing back to the beginning, what are those metrics, goals, and outcomes? How are you tracking the success of your solution? And talked about this earlier, you'll be uploading a demo video, and as a part of that demo video, the judges are going to want to see an actual working application. They're going to want to see users interacting with it. They're going to want to see the effective use of the Google products and platforms that you chose to implement as a part of your solution. And then last, we have scalability and next steps. So thinking through scalability, I think, is an important part of building now. So it's not just building for a short-term goal, but thinking about the architecture of your solution, thinking about the impact of your solution in the long term. How can you design a solution that could be easily scaled? We have a lot of folks from previous years, a lot of teams from previous years that have continued to iterate on their solutions and who have published their applications in the Play Store and are continuing to build on that. So that's something else that we want to think through. So next we'll be talking about prizes. So we have a couple of different sections to talk about here. So all participants are going to receive a Google Developers Digital Profile Badge and an official Solution Challenge certificate. Then the top 100 teams are going to receive customized mentorship from Googlers and other experts that are going to help take their solutions to the next level. They're also going to receive a Solution Challenge branded t-shirt, as well as a top 100 Solution Challenge certificate. Moving into the prizes for the top 10 finalists, those top 10 finalists are going to receive continued mentorship through Demo Day, a custom top 10 swag box, social recognition, and as mentioned earlier, an opportunity to showcase their solution during Demo Day live on YouTube. And we also have a top 10 Solution Challenge certificate for them as well. Now, the top 10 and the top 3 are also going to win cash prizes. So the contest finalists that are a part of the top 10 that don't make it to the top 3, each person is going to get $1,000 as a cash prize. And for the top 3 winners, they are each going to receive $3,000, and they're going to be featured on the Google Developers blog. So we're really excited about this. All right, I know many of you have already registered for the Solution Challenge. I wanted to just provide a quick opportunity for any that haven't or that might want to grab the link really quick. Feel free to scan this QR code and register or share this. And yeah, we're excited. We've had a lot of folks register, and we'll be sending out continued communications to those that register. And finally, before we pass it over to our next speaker, just a few quick reminders. If you have questions or if you need technical support, please utilize the Q&A section of the chat for those questions. We will have a dedicated Q&A after our next couple speakers present. And if you need any technical support, we do have the Bevy support staff that are available. Go ahead and click Help and click Get Help, and the staff will help you through that process. So again, thank you so much. Very excited to see what you all build. And it's just, I feel very grateful and thankful to be a part of the opportunity, to see you all grow, to see the amazing things that you build, and excited to help you through that process.
Thank you, Jackie, for going through all of those details, very important details for folks to understand how to get started, how to even express their interest in the solution challenge. I have the pleasure now to invite my colleague, Erwin Batboul, to the stage to share with you about the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. He has a very intimate relationship with these goals, just given his work here at Google as the lead for Project 2030. So I will give him the floor to introduce himself and talk a little bit more about the Sustainable Development Goals. To you, Erwin.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today and present the Sustainable Development Goals and also give you some tips and advice on how to tackle those as part of this Innovation Solution Challenge. So my name is Erwin. I'm based in Israel, and I'm the founder of the Startups for Sustainable Development program. It's a global initiative where we're helping entrepreneurs, startups that are building solutions to tackle any of those 17 SDGs. If you're not familiar with the SDGs, those have been created and adopted by the United Nations in 2015. And the goal of those SDGs is really to make sure that we build a sustainable world where everyone can live by 2030. So they've been looking at all the challenges that our world is facing, from poverty to hunger, healthcare, education, gender equality, and many more. You have the full list on the screen right now. And for each of those goals, they looked at what does that mean to live in a sustainable world? Where do we need to be in the following 15 years? So we are now about midway through in 2023. And if we look at the state of progress of all the countries in the world toward those goals, and you can Google for this dashboard and to see where we are, unfortunately, we're very much behind across all 17 SDGs and across every market. That's a sad state of affairs, but it's also a great opportunity to leverage technology and to innovate in order to build solutions that are going to scale and help achieve those goals. So this is really an opportunity for all of you to look at that space and pick one or more of those goals that are very important to you, whether it's a personal thing that you have, or whether the community in which you live is facing a particular challenge. Next slide, please. So when we look at those goals and the principles, there's actually 3 guiding principles that are defining the SDGs in general. The first one is a human rights-based approach, and I won't spend too much time explaining this. This is what you can think of when you think about basic human rights. The second one is a very important one, and this is the concept of leaving no one behind. And that represents the commitment of the UN to, one, eradicate poverty in all its forms, but also end discrimination and exclusion and reduce inequalities and vulnerabilities across the board, which have been leaving people behind and ultimately undermining their potential as individuals and humanity as a whole. So this concept of leaving no one behind is critical across all those 17 SDGs. And so whenever you design a solution, you have to think about not just the 50 or 90% that your solution is going to address, but you really need to look at everyone else, the people who may have handicap, people who may not be literate, or the people who are at the margin of the society. So something very important to keep in mind. And the third guiding principle is around gender equality. Gender equality makes development stronger and more sustainable in general. And it's not just like a moral and social issue, but it's also a critical economic challenge. if women, who account for half of the world's population, do not achieve their full economic potential, the economy will suffer. In fact, women, if they were afforded the same equity as men in the labor market, the global annual GDP would grow by as much as 26% by year 2025. So there is a reason to make sure, a business reason to make sure that we bring gender equality. But beyond the business reason, there's a lot of data and research that shows that if you have a society that encourages women to hold political leadership position, to demonstrate more equally balanced schools, and overall, those societies get more peaceful and more equitable. So there's a lot of reasons to push forward. And there's also something that's important, and I think events in Ukraine are showing, is that actually when there is more women in positions of leadership, there's actually less conflict in societies. So for all those reasons, this is also a critical piece of the 17 SDGs. Next slide, please. So when you tackle those SDGs, now the challenge is, how do you make sure that you're actually building the right thing? And this is where you need to look into what's called SDG targets and indicators. So if you go online and you search for those SDGs, you'll find on the website of the UN, for each of those 17, you can get more information in terms of what's called targets and indicators. So under each SDG, you'll have like anywhere from 3 to 10 or more indicators. What does that mean concretely? Like if you open the SDG 3, which is about healthcare, you'll see that there is a target around decreasing the maternal mortality rates. And this is a very clear target. The goal is to be at 70 per 100,000 live births. And so when you have an idea, it's not just about being in that field, right? Like, for example, some of you may think, oh, I could do this nice watch that I'm going to have on my wrist, and it's going to encourage me to walk more every day. And as such, maybe I will have better health. Does that really qualify as a target of the SDG? Maybe not. And you have to look at those targets to actually see it. So make sure that when you have an idea, you can actually link the KPIs and the metrics that you're going to move to any of those targets and indicators. Next slide, please. And press one more, thank you. So when we develop for the SDGs, there's a number of risks and pitfalls, and I'm going to give you a few examples here, because it's actually quite challenging to be developing the right solution and also have a business model that makes it work so that it's profitable and you can actually scale that solution. One of the first challenges that you face is regarding the irrelevance or lack of context, which is basically, what does that mean? It means like you're innovating, and your innovation, once it's delivered to a different community than the one you build it for, it may not work as well. For example, one of the things that happened is like for refugee camps, there was a big need to build toilets. And so someone came with an innovation, which is some portable toilet, and they installed it in the refugee camps, hoping that it would get used. And after a few weeks, they realized that nobody was using those toilets. And why is that? Is that because they designed the toilets without taking into account one very important factor of those refugee camps, is that they were Muslims. And when you are a Muslim, you cannot defecate turning the back to either north or south. Like, you need to be facing in a particular direction from a religious principle. And they didn't take that into account. So basically, they innovated that crazy toilet that was working without water and whatnot, and they set it up on the ground. But at the end of the day, nobody was using it. So it's very important that when you build your innovation, you take into account the community and the targets that are going to use it. The other pitfall is called the do no harm concept. What does that mean? It means like when you build something, you need to make sure that not only this innovation is going to help for a particular SDG, but also make sure that it's not going to have side consequences, side effects that are going to be negative for other aspects. And that is actually really difficult to do properly. One example, there was an innovation, which is let's bring internet and computers to a country in Africa in some rural villages. And this will give them access to information. They will be able to educate themselves and hopefully benefit from access to internet. They did this, but unfortunately, this had a negative side effect. What was the negative side effect is that in this rural village, to start with, only men were literate. The women were usually not literate, and also they often had to stay at the farm in order to take care of the family. And so what happened is that with this innovation, yes, the men were able to access more information, but the gap between men and women increased because of this access to resources. And that is a negative side effect. Remember the third guiding principle, we want to have equity between women and men. And so what seemed like a really good idea on the surface, unfortunately, had unintended negative consequences. And the third risk that I want to highlight is what we call the dependency on aid. And basically, it means that you're creating a solution which, through its nature, is not going to be sustainable by the local communities that are using it, in the sense that they won't be able to pay for it. So, example, some startup came up with an innovation, which is a hand washing device, very fancy. It can be dropped anywhere, and you put your hand below it with some sensors and some smart AI kind of gives you the exact amount of soap that you need. You wash your hand in 2 seconds and you call it a day. It's a great innovation. The only challenge is that the soap had to be produced by some company outside, and it was really expensive. So there was no way that those local communities could actually buy that soap on a regular basis. So they were relying on donation, and that is not sustainable. So this is another example of an innovation where you need to make sure that it is sustainable in its usage when you take into consideration the target communities. Next slide, please. Now I want to highlight 2 examples of such innovation. Hopefully some of those examples are going to inspire you. So the first one is Earthly, and it's one of the startups that we have in our program, the Startups for Sustainable Development program. And what they're doing is that they're developing some technology to encourage people to plant trees and regenerate basically new carbon sinks in the world. So far, they planted millions of trees and helped businesses get those carbon credits. And the way they're doing this is by creating this virtual reality environment where people can actually have some gamified experience when they plant trees. So you can actually go and grow a forest, and it's going to be your own forest, and you can add more of those trees. You're going to see their growth throughout the years. And so that's a way to get people excited to actually plant more trees. So it's one example of an innovation that is right now being successful, and they have a concrete impact on those SDGs, especially SDG 13, because they are actually capturing carbon by planting those trees, and they're measuring this impact. Next slide, please. So the next innovation is actually one from the Developer Solution Challenge from last year. And this is one of the top finalists. You may have seen it already. And this is an innovation from a team in Vietnam. And what they did is basically create a COVID-19 portable testing station that would make it really easy and frictionless for people to validate that they don't have COVID. So using some IoT and data, keeping track of people, doing some face recognition, they were able to build this solution, and it was deployed in their school, and it was a success. So in their case, they were addressing a concrete need because of the COVID pandemic. So I think you can Google this solution. It was published, and hopefully it will inspire you using a lot of great Google technologies to tackle a very real problem of our society. So with that said, I hope this will inspire you to tackle some pressing societal and environmental challenges. Last year, we were really excited to see all those inspiring solutions that the students built. And I'm looking forward to seeing more innovation this year. Very excited to support you in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Erwin, for that really comprehensive overview of the Sustainable Development Goals and providing tangible examples of how those have been put to work in order to actually have some impact in real lives. So we are hoping, again, to use your words, inspire all of you student developers in the room or watching this at a later point to be able to meet that end of the 2030 United Nations goals by using Google tools to help support meet that goal. So thank you, Erwin. And I wanted to make a quick note before we pass it over to Kyle, is that we noticed in the Q&A chat, folks are excitedly sharing their LinkedIn posts, but we asked for in the Q&A section for it to just be about questions so that we can get to all of the topics that folks need some additional clarification around with our guest speakers, as well as Jackie, who shared details about the Solution Challenge competition. So the networking piece can absolutely continue to happen. We just ask you to move it away from the Q&A section so that we can capture all the questions that are coming in. Thank you. So without further ado, I pass it over to Kyle Paul, who has been with us for many years with the Solution Challenge, to talk to you more about the Google products that are available for you to use in thinking about your solution for your projects. Kyle?
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. So yes, I am Kyle Paul. I work here at Google. I'm on the core server community and experts lead, which is an internal DevRel program that we have. And as Rachel mentioned, I've been a part of the Solution Challenge for many years, and I'm very excited to see what all of you build. And so to go ahead and kick it off with our next slide, I want to begin by thanking all of you for taking part in the Solution Challenge. If you signed up, if you haven't, please sign up. It is a very fun challenge to be a part of. There's, as Erwin walked through with the SDGs, there's a lot of great impact that you can provide in your locale, whatever that is. So as that last example he shared, they helped a university. You can help your town, your village, your province, your country, the world. There's all kinds of impact that you can have here. And so I thank you for stepping up to be a part of the challenge and also being leaders at your schools and helping your communities. So just a big thank you there. And to get started with our agenda, some of the stuff I'm going to walk through today, just give you some background on project planning. So I know we've had a couple hints along the way, but just wanted to give you the 4 easy steps around that, easy in quotes. A quick product overview. So I've seen many questions coming in about this Google technology versus this Google technology. I want to just kind of give a quick highlight over a bunch of different ones that you can use on your projects. But I want to spend more time on sample project architectures. So this is something that, as we've all been, Jackie was talking about earlier, about, focusing on the technology aspect of your project. And so I want to help you to design that to where you have a great solution that helps you to solve an SDG. And then I just want to double down on the technology criteria. So that way I can help unpack and help you to understand that a little bit better. So with that, let's go ahead and look at project planning. So again, in quotes, 4 easy steps. So first, you have to come up with that idea. And I know we've had a couple things tossed around to kind of give you some inspiration, but work with your team, together with your team, to figure out what you want to solve. And so it could be picking the SDG first that you want to solve for, and then trying to identify a solution. Or if you think of a solution that you already have in your back pocket, and then how do you apply that solution to one of the SDGs or multiple of the SDGs? Because you can have multiple SDGs, you just have to have at least one. The other thing, the next step that you want to do is prototype. You want to, test it out there before you start to build it. So by prototyping, this means drawing it on paper or using a whiteboard to walk through it as if it was already built. You want to do this prototyping so that way you're not spinning your cycles and wasting a bunch of time writing code when I saw some examples coming through about this language versus this language, or this platform versus this platform. So you want to test it and see how you want your application to work. That platform might not work and this platform might be better. So let's say like Firebase versus Google Cloud. So Firebase might be easier for you to quickly build and scale your application versus trying to do everything over here. It all depends. And then once you've been through that iterations of the prototyping, then you want to move over to building and testing. This is where you actually start typing code now and testing that application as you're building it. And then, yes, you do need and want to deploy it. That's kind of what'll get your solution to the next stage during the judging process and stuff like that. It helps to have a working solution that you can demo in your video. It works to have a have a working version that you can put in your video, a working version that the judges can actually play with. So whether that's, you're doing ML models and you want to have the judges input data into the model to see what that comes back. If it's a web application, this way they can see a UI that they can play around with. If it's a mobile application, you kind of get the idea there. So but you do also want to show that you've also tested this with users. So this could be family, friends, fellow students, members of the community, to show that this has a valuable impact out there beyond just you and your team working on this. So you do want to make sure that your team is working on this as well. And next up, cool. We want to I'm going to quickly buzz through a bunch of these products. You should be familiar with many of these. We have our various different marketing pages where you can do a deeper dive to learn and understand these more. We have great YouTube content that talks in depth about all of these things. I'm not going to go super in depth because I don't have a ton of time to talk about that. And I want to make sure we focus on building your project. But with that, these are the products that I'm going to kind of quickly go over as what we've seen as successful places to start your projects. And, if you, like Erwin was mentioning, the one of the winning teams last year, they used a combination of these. So there was the PWAs, there was Angular, there was Firebase, they used TensorFlow. There was a multitude of different things that you can build in here. And so you could use all of these, as I show in this example here, all of these in your project. That's a lot of work and I don't suggest doing that, but let's go ahead and check out TensorFlow. So TensorFlow, it's a great way to do end-to-end pipelines. It's a very beginner-friendly way to get into ML modeling. If you want to learn more, we have a ton of code labs around this, and there's various flavors of TensorFlow that can get you started around, using it in JavaScript. So you could even use it on the web. You have it for mobile applications, IoT. There's a ton of possibilities with TensorFlow. And again, look at the code labs and look at everything here. And this is part of your prototyping, where look at the tool and see if it fits the needs for the application you want to build. Don't just be, TensorFlow is amazing. We're only using TensorFlow because it's amazing. TensorFlow is amazing and you should use it, but does it fit the need of your application? And next up is Google Cloud. With Google Cloud, one amazing reason to choose it, and this kind of leads back into the SDG, is Google Cloud is on a sustainable infrastructure. So it's net zero. It's green technology that with Google Cloud. So if you're using Google Cloud, that's another talking point that you can use in your application. You've built your solution on Google Cloud, so you're able to add that into your video, that it's a sustainable solution that you're solving for with a sustainable technology. Wink, wink. There's a ton of other possibilities with Google Cloud. As I said, I could spend 2 hours talking about Google Cloud because there's over 100 different products to choose from within Google Cloud, various APIs, databases. You have serverless, you have server, you have a compute engine, there's machine learning, there's IoT, there's tons of different things that you could do with Google Cloud. So I highly suggest checking that out and seeing how that can apply to your application. We'll have, again, I'll have many examples later on, but yeah, just wanted to double down on Google Cloud there. With Firebase, Firebase is one of my favorite Google products. It has all the tools and infrastructure you need for mobile apps, web apps. It has databases. It has global CDN hosting, which means when you host your web application on Firebase, it instantly goes across all of our data centers and everybody has access to it. It also has authentication built into it, where if you need your users to be able to securely log in and out of an application, Firebase has that solution already built for you. You just add it to your application. If you haven't tried to build one from scratch yourself, good luck. It's not the easiest thing to do. Firebase makes that super easy. Next up is Progressive Web Apps, PWAs for short. These are web applications that are scalable. You've probably heard of, if it works on a laptop, it works on a big screen, it works on a tablet. So with a PWA, it acts almost like a mobile app, but it's a single code base. You're able to use, React, Angular, Vue.js. There's a ton of different frameworks out there that let you build PWAs, and you can host your PWA on Firebase, which is an awesome tool there. And then we have Android. Hopefully all of you are very familiar with Android. It's our mobile development platform. Preferred language is Kotlin. I did see a couple comments and questions thrown in there. Preferred language with building Android is Kotlin. And you could build a high quality native app where you can optimize it if you're doing gaming, finance, productivity. There's a lot of different applications that you can make. And I think it was Rachel or Jackie that mentioned it earlier on, many of our previous solutions have actually been published into the Google Play Store, which is via Android. The other way to do it is via Flutter, which is our next one. And with Flutter, you can build and deploy beautiful mobile apps and web apps. But with Flutter, you have the advantage of being able to also make iOS apps. So it depends on your region. And as you're looking at it, you have the capability to publish an Android and an iOS app using Flutter with a single code base. It's very similar to native app performance, but again, the advantage is you write the code once and you can deploy to multiple areas. And again, with all of these, you have tons of Google Code Labs and YouTube videos to deeper dive into. But I want to spend a little bit more time on sample architectures, which helps you hopefully this will help you to be able to combine various Google products for your projects. So that way you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So our first sample app is using TensorFlow and Android together. So there really is we're not really using a database here. There's no login. Essentially what we're doing is we're providing training images to the TensorFlow model. And then so that way we build out the model, it's fully trained. And then we use TensorFlow Lite on our mobile app to get labels back from images that are sent in from the mobile app. So we've already pre-trained the model. And this could be, let's say you have the Zero Hunger, where if you're looking at number 2, where there's an issue with crops. And so you're able to deploy an app for farmers to take photos of their crops to understand what's happening. And we've seen some solutions where they take a photo of the dirt, and so by looking and analyzing the dirt, you're able to provide a something back that says, oh, you should probably plant this crop this cycle based on what the dirt looks like. Or if you're taking a picture of the plant itself, this could be something like, oh, this plant has this disease, you should use this solution to help fight the disease or remove this insect that's harming the plant. So there's different applications that you can use here. That's an example. The next sample we have is building a mobile app. And here you're using Firebase with Cloud Firestore as your database. You're using Firebase authentication that allows your users to authenticate, you log in and out. And then you're using Cloud Functions that give you extra capabilities. This is a very simple, most of the apps that you'll see in the Google Play Store or in the Apple App Store, you'll see many of them use something like this, where it's a very simple app, very simple architecture, but whatever you're in this format here can apply to many, many, many solutions. It just depends on how you want to apply it. But I just wanted to show a very simple sample app architecture. The next one is a little bit more complex. And like sample app 1, instead of using a mobile app, we're using a PWA. So this helps make it more accessible to folks, because if you're in a particular region that doesn't have the capability to buy the latest Android phone, for example, where you don't have the device storage, where you can't have a lot of apps installed, this is where PWA comes in and makes it much nicer and cleaner, to where it's not the huge app size, but you're able to have that connectivity to where you can take a photo, upload it to the application, and use Google Cloud's Cloud Vision API, which gives you a lot of the same labels and identifying characteristics back. So that way, you're still able to provide some of those solutions. I wish I was able to share my screen, because I had some fun. I had a fun image where I used the Cloud Vision API to show off. It took a photo of me. I took a photo of me and uploaded it to the Vision API, and you're able to other things beyond crops, like you're able to detect a sentiment. So, like, was I happy? Was I sad? You're able to detect things like that. The other thing that you could use the Cloud Vision API for is think about safety. Is this image safe to be posted online? And so you have a threshold that you can do with that. So that way you can, if you're adding chat to your application and allowing your users to upload photos or video, but with photos, you're able to have that safety check that could block unsafe images, for example. Our next sample app this is very helpful with the Cloud Translation API, and you can have this be a PWA or a mobile app or both. As the example, Gateway that Erwin showed earlier, they had both a PWA and a mobile app. So I'm glad he showed that version, that one in his talk. But they used a lot of the same things here, but I added in Cloud Translation. So this is where, let's say your region happens to speak multiple languages. With the Cloud Translation API, we currently have over 100 different language pairs that you can translate between. So if that's something that's very helpful and impactful to your region, I highly suggest adding translation to your application. That way you can impact a lot of users. Another way that you can use this is for education, like an e-learning management system, where you're able to educate members of your community or your university through a learning management thing. That's another application that you could do with an application architecture like this. And then next up, another simple one, but it looks simple on the surface because of its simple architecture, but really this is a very powerful application right here. You're using Google Cloud SQL, and what Cloud SQL is doing. So let's say you're building an Android app that you're trying to process and show a bunch of information and data, but Android or the device can only do so much processing, and you don't want your users spinning their cycles while they're waiting for an answer. So you can offload all the analyzation of that data to Cloud SQL. You can run very complex queries with Cloud SQL, and it processes it in the cloud and then provides a faster answer to your users here. So looks simple, like I said, but very powerful right here. And then finally, our final project here, sample app 6. This one here is one of my favorites. There was a previous app that did something previous solution challenge submission that did something very similar to this, where they had a mobile app that provided access to. So this example here is a blood bank. So with a blood bank, you need the security. So that's where your Firebase authentication comes in. You have Cloud Firestore, which encrypts and secures your data. and you're using the Google Maps API to find locations to where, let's say that there's a blood bank that is in need of a certain type of blood. You can alert users using cloud messaging like, hey, users in this area, we need this type of blood, or this type of this blood bank is having a donation drive at this time, and so you're able to alert users via that. Another application using the Maps API here would also be for like flooding. So you want to notify your users about flooding. I know many regions have issues with your rivers overflowing, lakes overflowing. You can have an early advanced alert system. You don't have to use a mobile app. You can use a PWA here. You could use Flutter. There's all kinds of other user side things that you could do. But as far as like Firebase, you have the authentication and security with, maintaining your users' data. And sorry, I know that was very quick on a lot of those things, but I wanted to double down as well on the technology criteria to make sure that you spend more time also looking at this. And I walked through very quickly, a lot of Google technologies and ways that you can combine various Google technologies. You don't get more points necessarily by combining all of the Google things, but what you do is use of Google technologies, and you can demonstrate an actual working application and users interacting with it and using Google technology. Why? In the first bullet here, did you clearly explain what Google technology you used and why you used it? So this is kind of circling back to what I mentioned at the very beginning of my talk. So yes, TensorFlow is amazing. Why did you use it, and how did you use it? So these are things that you want to double down and make sure before you pick the technology while you're in the prototyping phase of building your project out. So again, please read all of these points very carefully before you're during your prototyping phase. But yes, let's go build some solutions, and thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for that. Though it was high level, it was very, very detailed as far as like what options are available. And this is just a teaser of what's on the plate for you and available to you as far as Google technology. So thank you again, Kyle, for the time. I know right now, we would like to move over to the Q&A section of our event. And if Kyle and Erwin are able to stay around, they can answer some of the questions related to the pieces that they talked about overall. So what Jackie has done is helped me out by collecting many of the questions into thematic areas so that we can answer through. And instead, there are some questions that I hope that folks have been able to get answered through the presentation, but let's go through some of them now. I would like to start off with the technical pieces, and you'll see that everyone is back on the screen, Jackie, Erwin, and Kyle. So we'll do this in kind of panel style. And one of the first technical questions is, can we use other technology instead of Flutter, like React? And Kyle, I know you just came off of this, so would you like to respond to that question?
So use a technology so React is not a Google framework, but you are capable to use React. It is a great framework to use for a PWA. Angular is another one. You could use Flutter. So it depends on the solution. Like I was mentioning during the prototyping phase, figure out what solution works best for your application. So again, Angular is great. React is great. It's how you apply it to your application and put it, where if you're building in React, you can do Firebase hosting with it. And so that way you're still using a Google technology.
Thank you. The next technical question that we have, should our solution only consist of software or hardware too?
I would say you could do both. As Erwin showed in the Gateway project from the Vietnam folks, they used a physical IoT where they had tablets, they had phones, they used webcams. There was a lot of hardware pieces that were tied into their final application. But the big thing that we want with the solution challenge is a software solution. So you're building an Android application or Flutter application, PWA application. You're hosting it on Google Cloud. You're hosting it on Firebase. As long as you're using a Google product as part of your solution challenge submission, that's what we're looking for, and it's software based.
Thank you, Kyle, for that.
Yep.
One question or statement that comes from the audience is, I'm not really too good at coding and stuff. Should I take part in this event? If yes, what could be my work in a project, if any? And I think this would be great. Erwin, if you could respond to this. I know you work with many entrepreneurs and some folks may be more technically savvy than others. What would you say if someone who doesn't have a technical background but is interested in this opportunity to build impact?
Yeah, this is a great question, and definitely there's an opportunity to participate and have an impact even if you don't have a technical background. Like, for example, I was mentioning that a lot of the SDG targets have a very high emphasis on making sure that you develop a solution that, one, works for your local community, and two, checks the box on many of those principles regarding women equity and those kind of things. And that requires things like user research. You're going to have to research what's important for that community. Also, as you develop your product, there's always a lot of testing and feedback you want to get from the users, and those things don't necessarily require a technical background. So 100%, there's a lot of opportunities, but I would say not just opportunities, requirements to do that type of research and understanding of your local community.
Great. Thank you, Erwin, for that. Let's see. One question is, does the application have to be fully programmed, or can we just submit the UI, UX/prototype, not the fully programmed solution?
That's where I would say look back at the technology criteria. I know I only had it up for a short minute there, but you have to be able to showcase a fully working, show an actual, it's the 4th bullet. In your video demonstration, show an actual working application, not a mock-up. So something that you can deploy and show that it works.
That's right. Thank you, Kyle. And that's mostly around the technical. There are some questions around, will this event be recorded? Yes, it is currently being recorded and will be available to all attendees. And I want to plug that there'll be an opportunity for folks to watch it asynchronously after this time, and then also be able to attend live Q&A sessions that Jackie and I will host on Discord later this week on Friday, and then again next week, the 25th. So you should have, if you're interested in attending any of those sessions to get some of your questions answered, additional questions answered, we'll be there to talk you through those, and then also have the recording available to you to watch at a later point with your team members, if you're interested. And I'll take a couple more questions before we transition to networking tables, because I do want to give you all the opportunity to connect with one another, as you started to in the chat, as well as some of the regional leads and community managers that are here with us today to talk about what could be a particular priority for your region or your country, and maybe even finding other team members if you are a lone individual looking to be a part of a group. I know Jackie talked about how many members should make up a team. It can be as few as 1 and as many as 4. So no more than 4, no fewer than 1 can make up a team. And the groups are organized by yourselves. You are identifying individuals, whether you are already part of a GDSC community and that chapter wants to submit a solution, that could be your team. Or it can be a number of folks from another university, from another country, that you have a likened interest and want to build together. So that's how teams can be formed. You can only be part of one team, however, and submit one solution as that team. Cool. I'm just trying to cherry pick some other questions. Jackie,
I did see I was gonna say I did see a good one. That, hopefully, I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Cavalia. She asked, "Should our solution only contain Google technologies, or would it be fine if we include other technologies for which Google doesn't provide services at present?" My first question back is what are you trying to use that Google doesn't provide? Because as I kind of walk through, we have a plethora of things that Google provides. So I'm very interested to learn what you're thinking to apply into your solution. But the short answer is yes. If your solution challenge submission does have to use a Google technology, which is could be one of the ones that I walk through on API of Google's that I walk through. But you are fine to integrate with other things. So like if you need to be able to take payments, so you could use a developer service like Stripe or some other thing to be able to help process a payment. There are things like that that you can tie into that are not Google technologies. But I'm very interested to hear what other things that you're thinking to add that Google doesn't currently yet provide as a product or service.
Yeah. And in addition to that, it is the solution isn't agnostic to simply Google technologies. We obviously want you to use at least one. More than one is great if it makes sense for your project. But if you want to bring in other technologies outside of Google, that is permitted as well. But yeah, very curious to know what are some things that fall outside of Google that you're wanting to bring in that we don't currently meet. So just wanted to add that to Kyle's response. And one other question I'll take it, are graduate students eligible? Yes, graduate students are eligible to participate in Solution Challenge so long as you are either a member of a GDSC chapter or joining a team that has GDSC leads and core members. And there are other questions here that Jackie and I will sum up and provide to you all in FAQ to get those answered. But I'm hoping that most of the presentation was able to tap into to get clarification around eligibility and criteria. And I again want to just thank Kyle and Erwin for joining us to talk about Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations and ways that you can start to imagine your project. Yes, the themes are global, but your approach can be very local, right? It can be something that matters to you and your community on the immediate scale, which might actually have great implications for solving a global problem. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate Kyle again talking through all the Google products that we have available to you. And right now we will pause to shift over to the networking tables. You'll have the opportunity to join one or more networking tables based on various topics. This is a slide with a lot of words and it's very little, I know, but if you want to take a screen grab or take a picture of it, these are the networking tables that are available to you. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we have some of our regional leads and community managers and other members of the Google team here that will be floating in and out of these networking tables to be able to answer questions. But again, this is truly an opportunity for you all as student developers to connect with one another, kind of debrief all of the information that we just shared with you, and just to keep encouraging and exciting each other around this particular opportunity. So how to join networking tables, you'll see if you are on the Bevy screen or the event platform screen, you'll see networking, and then it should provide you a huge list, the list that I just shared with you of the tables that are available to you, and then you can join that way. I do want to share the caveat that given that this is such a large group, every room, it allows the first 50 people to be able to come off of mute and turn on their camera. Otherwise, 51 plus participants in the room will be able to listen in on the conversation. So if you would rather speak and actually connect with someone through verbal communication, you can leave that room, join another room where there are 50 or less people for the ability to come off of mute and turn on your camera to have conversation. And then these, I just wanted to resurface our rules for networking, which is the same rules that we have for gathering as a community at large. If you have the opportunity to turn on your camera and turn on your mic, please feel free to do so. We want to respect and be polite about allowing folks to claim space and be able to speak up if they would like to do so. So sharing the mic. And feel free to connect with each other on social media. Many of you have shared your LinkedIn profiles. So I hope that this is just the beginning of many further conversations and connections that you all are making with each other. And Jackie, can I ask you to come up to share anything else about networking tables?
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything. If you're unable to find to locate the networking link there, we will provide it in the chat as well for you.
And one note, so once you are in your networking table, networking rooms or tables that you're navigating through, we will end from there. So you do not need to come back to the main stage. That will be the conclusion of our event today. And I just want to thank all of our guests, Kyle, Erin, and Jackie, for being able to speak through all of the pieces of the Solution Challenge. And I want to thank you all attendees for making the time to sit through and listen and participate in this amazing opportunity, and have the opportunity to connect with one another. So I send you off into networking rooms. And again, thank you for the time. And you can find me and Jackie and the rest of the planning team through all of the communications that we've sent out. There is an email alias you can reach out to us. And then again, you can join us at any of the live Q&A sessions that we have scheduled for Friday and next week, Wednesday.